Imagine this. You're a British Redcoat, 3,000 miles from home. You've been trained to fight the proper way, standing in neat, disciplined lines, firing volleys on open European battlefields. You're part of the most powerful military force on Earth. You've crushed rebellions, defeated rival empires, and you expect this colonial uprising to be just another minor inconvenience. But then you step into the American wilderness, and you realize nothing you learned prepared you for this. The enemy doesn't line up and fight you fairly. They hide behind trees. They shoot your officers first. They vanish into the forest like ghosts. Your scarlet uniform, a symbol of pride in Europe, makes you a perfect target. Your formations, your tactics, your entire way of warfare is suddenly brutally obsolete. Welcome to the British Redcoats' worst nightmare. Welcome to the American Revolution, where the rules of war were rewritten and the world's greatest army learned what it truly meant to fight an insurgency on hostile ground. This is why it absolutely sucked to be a British soldier fighting the American Revolutionaries. To understand the nightmare, we must first grasp the impossible task Britain faced. The American colonies stretched over 1,000 miles of coastline, from the frozen harbors of Massachusetts to the sweltering swamps of Georgia. Dense forests, treacherous mountains, hostile wilderness. This wasn't the manicured battlefields of Europe. This was untamed, unforgiving terrain that swallowed armies whole. The British Army was a magnificent war machine, perfected over centuries. Disciplined, professional, feared across Europe. Their soldiers drilled endlessly in the art of linear warfare, standing shoulder to shoulder, firing devastating volleys in unison, advancing with bayonets in terrifying waves. On the open fields of Europe, this was unstoppable. But the Americans? They fought dirty. The American Revolutionaries weren't a professional army, not at first. They were farmers, shopkeepers, and frontiersmen who'd spent their lives hunting in the wilderness and fighting in brutal frontier conflicts. They knew every trail, every ridge, every place to hide. And they had zero interest in fighting fairly. For the British Redcoat, this was the first nightmare, an enemy that refused to play by the rules. Picture yourself marching down a narrow forest road in your bright red coat. Your column stretches for miles, slow-moving supply wagons, artillery pieces, hundreds of soldiers in tight formation. The trees press in on both sides. It's unnervingly quiet. Then suddenly, crack! A musket shot rings out from the woods. Your sergeant drops, blood spreading across his white crossbelt. More shots. Officers are falling first. They're being targeted, picked off deliberately. Panic ripples through the ranks. Where are they? You can't see them. You fire blindly into the trees, but the smoke from your black powder musket obscures everything. Your training screams at you to form a line, to stand and fight properly. But there's no one to fight. Just muzzle flashes in the shadows and the screams of dying men. Then there was the uniform, that iconic scarlet coat that made British soldiers the envy of Europe. In the American wilderness, it was a death sentence. The British Redcoat was designed for visibility and unit cohesion on European battlefields, where armies needed to see each other through the gunpowder smoke. But in the forests of America, you might as well have painted a target on your back. While American militiamen wore browns, grays, and greens that blended into the landscape, you stood out like a crimson beacon screaming, "Shoot me first." And the Americans obliged, constantly. But the tactics were just the beginning of the nightmare. Let's talk about the conditions. You're fighting in a land that wants you dead as much as the enemy does. Summer brings suffocating heat and humidity that Europeans couldn't fathom. Your heavy wool uniform becomes a sweat-soaked torture device. Mosquitoes swarm in biblical proportions, carrying diseases your surgeons can't cure. Dysentery rips through your camp, killing more men than musket balls ever will. Winter? Even worse. The winter of 1777 to 78 at Valley Forge is famous for how the Americans suffered, but British soldiers froze too, often in exposed positions far from adequate shelter. Your supply lines stretched across an ocean. Sometimes the supplies didn't come at all. Speaking of supplies, here's another nightmare: logistics. Everything you needed had to cross 3,000 miles of Atlantic Ocean. Uniforms, muskets, powder, food, medical supplies. It took months. Ships sank. Supply convoys were raided. Meanwhile, the Americans? They were home. They could resupply from local farms, hide in friendly towns, and disappear into the countryside to re-emerge when needed. You were always isolated, always vulnerable, always wondering if that next shipment would arrive. The American way of war was psychological torture for the professional British soldier. They pioneered what we'd now call guerrilla warfare on a massive scale. They'd hit your supply convoys, ambush your patrols, snipe at your camps at night, then vanish before you could retaliate. And they targeted officers. In European warfare, there was an unspoken gentleman's agreement. You didn't deliberately shoot officers. It wasn't cricket, but American sharpshooters, particularly the feared riflemen with their deadly, accurate Pennsylvania long rifles, made it their mission to kill your leaders first. Suddenly, your command structure was decapitated, leaving terrified young soldiers leaderless in hostile territory. Let's talk about those rifles. Your standard British Brown Bess musket was reliable, fast to reload, and devastating in massed volleys. But it was accurate to maybe 50 to 75 yards on a good day. The American riflemen? Their weapons could kill you at 200 to 300 yards with terrifying precision. Before you even knew you were in danger, your officer was dead, and the shooter was already repositioning. But here's what truly made fighting the Americans a nightmare. They learned. By 1777, they weren't just guerrilla fighters anymore. Under leaders like George Washington, Nathaniel Greene, and with training from European advisors like Baron von Steuben, they became a real army. They learned to stand and fight conventional battles when needed, but could also melt into the wilderness and fight dirty when that was smarter. You faced an enemy that could be everywhere and nowhere. Professional when it suited them, guerrillas when it didn't, and always on their home turf. The psychological toll was devastating. You watched your friends die from ambush, disease, and starvation. You occupied towns where every civilian might be a spy or a rebel. You couldn't trust anyone. The locals who smiled at you during the day might be shooting at you from the darkness. Desertion rates climbed. Morale collapsed. Many British soldiers simply gave up, walking away into the American wilderness to start new lives rather than continue this nightmare. By 1781, when Lord Cornwallis surrendered at Yorktown, it wasn't just a military defeat. It was the culmination of years of grinding, demoralizing warfare that broke the spirit of the world's greatest army. They'd been outfought not by superior numbers or firepower, but by an enemy that refused to fight on their terms, that turned every advantage against them, and that waged a type of war the British simply weren't prepared for. Fighting the American Revolutionaries sucked because they forced the British to fight a war they could win with tactics that didn't work in conditions that killed you as surely as enemy bullets. They were ghosts in the forest, sharpshooters in the hills, and an entire hostile population that supported them. Your bright redcoat made you a target. Your training made you inflexible. Your supply lines made you vulnerable. The British Redcoats weren't defeated because they were bad soldiers. They were defeated because they were fighting yesterday's war on tomorrow's battlefield. The American Revolution wasn't just a fight for independence. It was a revolution in warfare itself, where the rules changed where conventional wisdom failed, and where the world's most powerful military learned a brutal lesson. In war, the home field advantage and the will to fight unconventionally can defeat even the mightiest empire. For the British Redcoat, it was a nightmare that redefined modern warfare. And for Britain, it was a wake-up call that changed how empires would fight their wars forever. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe for more deep dives into history.